Today, we're going to be talking about the second greatest destroyer of wealth, and that is taxes. We're here with Peter Kitzerow, the author of You Are Smart Enough, and we're looking at Chapter 7, Taxes. And boy, is this a timely conversation. We're at an all-time historical low in tax rates, although people think differently if they haven't looked into it. But tell us about the history of taxes and what are we looking at for the future as national debt is out of control?
Well, first of all, Rob, thanks so much for having me back again. But you hit the nail right on the head. Taxes are one of the two greatest destroyers of wealth. Debt we covered last time. But taxes are a problem because as a consumer, you have no control over two elements that go into taxation. The first item that you have no control over is the one that everybody's familiar with, the tax rate. That's where you say like, well, I'm in a 22% tax bracket or a 12% bracket, or if you make a lot of money, I'm in a 37% tax bracket. That's the rate, okay? The other component that the government has control over, again, that you have no say in, is something called the threshold. And threshold means at what level of income does that new rate apply to you, okay? And so you mentioned a few moments ago that we're in historically low rates. You should know that in 1913 is when they first started the income tax system in this country. It was only supposed to last for 3 years, and it was to recover the costs of World War I. Well, as you can well imagine, it never went away. In fact, the rates only went up and up and up. And so in 1940, the highest tax rate was 80%. But you had to have a threshold of $5 million of income to be in that bracket. And so if you wanted to equate that to today, that would be like a billionaire today. And we're not going to feel sorry for those guys, right? Fast forward 4 years to 1944. The maximum tax rate was 96%. And they dropped the threshold from 5 million all the way down to 200,000. So as you can well imagine, a $5 million threshold down to 200, there are a lot more potential taxpayers that get stuck in that net at 200,000. And the rates have gone down and up over a period of time to where today at 37%, you have to have almost 650,000 of taxable income just to get you in that bracket. So most of the folks that we talk to are in a substantially lower bracket. Why is that important? Because we are at a point in time, as you mentioned, where there are forces that are going to most likely force the government to raise the taxes and perhaps drop the threshold at the same time. And the one that you nailed it right again is the national debt. Presently, we owe somewhere in the range of $32 trillion. And what that means is if you have no relation to that figure, it means that the bulk of every dollar earned, not all of it yet, but very close, the bulk of every dollar taken in by the government in the form of taxes is going to pay the interest, only the interest on those debts. And very shortly, somewhere around, I believe it was the next 10 or 15 years, it's likely that we will not have enough income just to pay the interest on the debt. Now, guess what? If all of your money is going to pay interest on the debt, what pays for Social Security? What pays for Medicare? What pays for the highways? What pays for the airports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? That means there is nothing to pay for them. So they're almost going to be forced into a situation where they have to raise taxes. That's an opportunity for most of the folks that we talk to, because most of the folks we talk to have done all of their savings for retirement in things like IRAs and 401k plans, where they didn't have to pay tax on the money when they put it in. They have to pay tax when they take it out.
Well, I thought that the saying was take the deduction now, and then when you retire and you're in a lower income tax bracket, you can pay the tax then. Go ahead.
Well, there was a time when that might have been true because the tax rates were 50 or 70%, and you didn't have to have a high threshold. You didn't have to have a high level of income to be in that.
Today, I'm here with author Peter Kitzerow, author of the book, You Are Smart Enough. We're talking about chapter
standard of living. They're going to be in a higher bracket right from the start. So the idea that you're going to be in a lower bracket is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, and you made a statement before the interview. People accumulate $1 million in their 401k, but in reality, did they really have $1 million?
You know, you work and save hard all of your life, and you think you're doing the right thing, and you get near retirement, and you look at your account balance, and you see $1 million. You're maybe not feeling like a millionaire, but you're feeling pretty close to it. And then you see a financial advisor, and they say, well, how much can you take out of it and not run out of money? And they say, well, somewhere around 2.7%. And you take your calculator and you do 2.7 of $1 million is 27,000 before taxes. So maybe it's 20,000 after taxes. How many people can live on $20,000 after taxes? Most can't. Most can't do it.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating. So many things that you really in your book break down traditional thought that are, so many of them are built on assumptions and were true at a time, but are not true today. And I think that there's a natural tendency for most people to avoid researching and learning about finance. And so we just live with our assumptions, the things we hear and we see and we've been told. So the book was very, very fascinating in reminding us of the assumptions, and you bring in human nature, and human nature always plays a role in our financial success as well. So Peter, what tools do you have available to help somebody with kind of what you were referring to? We have an opportunity to mitigate some of that tax risk in the future.
Okay, so there's no such thing as getting away scot-free or tax-free, if you will. You're going to have to pay, if the money that you've accumulated is in one of those types of plans, you're going to have to pay the tax. The question is it better to pay it today when the rates are low, or in the future when they could be much, much higher? Okay, academically, it's easy. It's better to pay it today. And the way you pay it today is by converting those tax-deferred accounts into something like a Roth IRA, for example. That's a tax-free account, but there's a cost to get that done. The work that we do with clients enables them to calculate very specifically what it will cost to move their money, and should they move it in a lump sum, or should they move it in increments over a period of time? Okay, and we can help everybody figure that out. That's one of the benefits, and that's one of the reasons I feel so driven to help people figure this out, so they don't get slammed in the time in their life when they least can afford to get slammed.
Right, absolutely. And the calculation that you do and helping them determine how to move that money, paying the least amount of tax, you're giving people a proactive option, not waiting to retirement where you're forced to, but doing it while you can at what you said, historically low tax rates today. So not knowing what tax rates will be in the future sounds like a smart, preemptive, proactive exercise to go through with you. So I'm encouraging everyone, get your hands on this book. I think, Peter, you're offering a free chapter download. There'll be a link down below. Any other resources that you want to offer before we wrap up today?
Well, as you mentioned, there's a link below where you can download chapter 7, I believe it is. And other than that, there's probably another button you can press that says schedule a 15-minute call with Peter, because we can have a chat and see if I'm a good fit to help you figure some of these things out and maybe answer some of your questions before you get too deep in the weeds trying to do it yourself. If you really want to get your hands on the book, the physical book, right away and don't want to wait, go see our friends at Amazon, look it up. It'll be under my name, Peter Kitzerow, and they'll have it to you in just a few days.
Well, Peter, again, thank you for joining us today. Lots of helpful insight. You've created clarity for us, and you make us feel smart.
Thanks so much, Rob.